Vintage iron weight plates, huh? Now that's a deep dive I can get behind. I mean, most people wouldn't give those rusty old weights a second glance, but yeah, you're onto something.
Yeah, it's funny, right?
We've got these two articles, more like love letters to vintage iron, really, and they make a really strong case for why these things are so much more than just hunks of metal.
Yeah. And you know what I think is really interesting is both these sources, right off the bat, what they focus on is the unexpected. It's not just about like how these things function. It's the aesthetic. It's the story they tell.
Oh, totally.
One of them even goes as far as to say rust is evidence of reality.
Okay, I love that. Like, forget your pristine chrome. Give me that been through a workout or 2000 look.
Exactly. And you know, that ties in directly with this whole idea of nostalgia that both articles talk about. They keep mentioning vintage plates evoking this golden age of fitness.
Oh, yeah, like those old photos, guys in tiny gyms with those thick mustaches hoisting these massive weights.
Yeah, exactly. But it's more than just the imagery. This golden age, you know what it represents. A time when fitness was less, I don't know, complicated, more about raw effort, dedication.
I feel that. Makes you wonder if part of the appeal of this vintage iron is kind of like a pushback against today's fitness culture, right? We're bombarded with gadgets, workout programs. Maybe there's something appealing about going back to basics.
It really is fascinating. It's like this yearning for authenticity that both these articles touch on. There's a rawness, there's a simplicity to this older equipment that can really feel grounding and once obsessed with the newest, shiniest thing.
For sure. Like it's that well-worn leather jacket you wouldn't trade for anything, right? History, character, and these vintage plates, just like that jacket, they have this like lived-in feel that you just can't fake.
It's true. You see that appreciation for that authenticity in other areas too, right?
Yeah.
Vintage clothing, classic cars. These objects, they embody a connection to the past, craftsmanship and durability that have stood the test of time.
Speaking of craftsmanship, one of these articles goes into some pretty cool details about the plates themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, all those different colors you see on vintage plates, not just for looks, they actually signify different weight amounts.
Yeah.
Wild.
It was practical, especially back in the day in those older gyms where the markings on the plates might have been worn off or not as visible.
So like a secret code. No wonder people are confused today when they see these plates with their faded paint, mysterious color combinations.
It's true. And that kind of naturally brings us to, well, there's one name that kept popping up in both articles, the York Barbell Company. Like, they're practically synonymous with vintage weightlifting equipment at this point.
Oh yeah, York. I've seen their name on some seriously old school weights. They're like the granddaddies of barbells.
More like the reigning royalty, really. They've been around since the 30s, and they weren't just making equipment, they were shaping the entire sport of weightlifting.
Seeing that York name on a vintage plate, it's like finding a first edition of your favorite book. You know, adds to that whole aura of history and quality.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of which, one of the articles mentioned something about those old York plates that really stuck with me. They said something like, these plates weren't just built to last, they were built to be USD. And it's true, you can see it in every chip of paint, every scratch.
It's funny, isn't it, how those imperfections actually make them cooler?
Yeah.
It's like they're saying, yeah, I've helped countless people reach their fitness goals. What have you done lately?
Right. And that kind of leads us to another point both articles touch on, the practical advantages of vintage iron. We've talked about the look, the nostalgia factor, but these things are seriously functional.
Oh, yeah.
They were made for serious lifting, and they can still hold their own, even against all the modern stuff.
Totally. Like one of these articles, they couldn't stop going on about the density of vintage iron plates.
Oh, yeah.
They were saying you get more weight in a smaller space. I mean, that's a game changer, especially if you're trying to cram a home gym into, well, a home.
Yeah, no kidding. And especially now, with more and more people building out home gyms, that desire for space-saving equipment, huge. These vintage iron plates are compact, they're durable. You're not giving up your whole living room to them.
Plus, you can't forget about that clank, that distinctive sound of iron plates. Okay, I know it's not just me, right? That sound is like music to a weightlifter's ears.
You're not alone. That clank, it's more than just a cool sound, though. It gives you this, auditory feedback, It connects you to the workout, the physicality of it, in a way that you just don't get with rubber-coated plates.
For sure. It's like the difference between, listening to vinyl versus a digital file. Sometimes you just want that raw, unfiltered sound.
I love that analogy.
Right.
And to be fair, to the rubber-coated plates out there, both articles do mention that modern materials have their place. Noise reduction, protecting your floors, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if you want that raw, durable feel that a lot of serious lifters crave, vintage iron is really hard to beat.
Plus, I don't know, there's something kind of cool about knowing you're working out with a piece of fitness history. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're carrying on a legacy or something.
I know exactly what you mean. And that historical significance kind of ties into another point the articles brought up: resale value.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, these vintage iron plates, they hold their value incredibly well. In some cases, they even go up in value over time.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
So you're telling me my rusty old weight plates could be a good investment? Who knew?
It's true. It's like finding a vintage muscle car in your grandpa's garage. It's got character, it's functional, and it's probably worth a small fortune.
Okay, so we've established you've got great taste in weight plates. But this whole thing has got me thinking, if these vintage plates are like finding a classic car, like you said,
Yeah.
what does that make all the fitness equipment we're using today?
That's a great question.